What would you do if one act of kindness had the power to change your entire life? Ethan, a homeless man with a shattered past, sneaks into a lavish wedding just to survive. But instead of being thrown out, he's offered a chance at redemption by a woman who sees the good in him. As secrets unravel and powerful enemies emerge, Ethan's journey becomes a fight for trust, hope, and a second chance at life. Stay tuned to see how one moment can transform everything. The cold night air clung to Ethan as he shuffled down the streets, the chill biting through his worn jacket. Hunger gnawed at his stomach, a constant reminder of the life he once had and the depths he had now reached. As he passed a grand hotel ablaze with golden light, the scent of roasted meats and sweet pastries wafted through the air, making his stomach twist with longing. The hotel's entrance was a spectacle. Luxury cars pulling up in droves, guests dressed in shimmering gowns and tailored suits stepping out with practiced ease. The hum of music from within reached Ethan's ears, and as he paused to watch the glittering scene, a daring thought crossed his mind. What if, just for a moment, he could step into that world again? Ethan hesitated, his conscience battling with his desperation. But the growl of his stomach silenced his doubts. Ducking his head, he waited for a group of guests to enter, blending into their chatter as he slipped through the revolving doors. The warmth of the room enveloped him, and for a moment he felt a pang of guilt, but survival often left no room for dignity. Inside, the opulence was almost overwhelming. Crystal chandeliers sparkled overhead, tables were laden with food, and laughter echoed in the air. Keeping to the edges of the room, Ethan moved carefully, grabbing a plate and piling it with as much as he could without drawing attention. He found a quiet corner and devoured the food, savoring every bite like a man starved of not just sustenance but hope. But as he reached for another pastry, a soft voice startled him. "Enjoying the party?" Ethan froze. He looked up to see a woman with kind eyes and an elegant demeanor standing before him. Her dress was simple but tasteful, a striking contrast to the ostentatious displays around her. For a moment he considered running, but her gaze wasn't accusatory, it was curious. "I'm sorry," he stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't mean to." "I know," she interrupted gently, her lips curving into a faint smile. "You're not supposed to be here, are you?" Ethan lowered his head, shame flooding his face. "I'll leave." But the woman didn't move to call security or create a scene. Instead, she extended a hand. "My name's Clara," she said. "Why don't we step outside for a moment?" Confused but intrigued, Ethan followed her to a quieter area. The moment they stepped into the cool air, Clara turned to him with a question that caught him off guard. "Why are you here?" Ethan hesitated, weighing his options. But something about her gaze felt safe. "I was hungry," he admitted. "That's all." Clara studied him for a moment, then nodded. "Do you want a real chance to turn things around?" Ethan blinked, unsure if he had heard her correctly. "Turn things around," he repeated, his tone edged with disbelief. Clara leaned against the railing, her breath visible in the crisp air. "I run a charity that helps people get back on their feet. I think you have potential, Ethan." He frowned. "You don't even know me." "Maybe not," she admitted, "but I know desperation when I see it. And I know it doesn't define who you are." Her words, though kind, made him uneasy. He wanted to believe her, but life had taught him that kindness often came with strings attached. "Why would you help me?" he asked, his voice filled with suspicion. Clara smiled, the kind of smile that seemed to carry its own light. "Because someone once gave me a chance when I didn't deserve one." Ethan opened his mouth to respond, but hesitated. He didn't know how to accept help. He'd long forgotten what it felt like to be offered anything without expecting repayment. Finally, he nodded, though his doubts lingered. "What do you want me to do?" "Come to my office tomorrow morning," she replied, handing him a card. "Let's talk about what you're good at and how you can help us. If you're willing to work, I'm willing to help." Ethan took the card, staring at it like it might dissolve in his hands. He wasn't sure if he could trust her, but the prospect of something better, anything better, was too tempting to ignore. The next morning, Ethan arrived at Clara's office, his nerves on edge. The space was warm and inviting, filled with shelves of books and photos of the charity's projects. Clara greeted him with the same calm kindness, introducing him to her brother Dylan, who was decidedly less welcoming. "So, this is the guy you want to hire?" Dylan asked, his tone dripping with skepticism as he appraised Ethan. "What's his story?" "Dylan," Clara warned, her tone firm but calm. "This isn't about his past. It's about his future." Dylan crossed his arms, clearly unconvinced, but said nothing further. Ethan felt the weight of his gaze and resolved to prove himself, not for Dylan's approval, but to earn the second chance Clara had offered him. Over the next few days, Ethan worked tirelessly, assisting with Clara's ongoing projects. His resourcefulness quickly became apparent, surprising even Dylan. Still, the tension between them remained palpable. "Why do you care so much about what happens to me?" Ethan asked Clara one evening as they wrapped up a long day. "Because I've seen what people can achieve when someone believes in them," she said simply. "And I think you're capable of more than you realize." For the first time in years, Ethan felt a flicker of something he hadn't dared to feel: hope. Ethan woke up in the corner of the small room Clara's charity had provided him, a far cry from the streets he'd called home for so long. It wasn't luxurious, but it was warm, clean, and his. For the first time in years, he felt a sliver of stability. As he got ready for his second day at the charity, he promised himself he wouldn't squander this opportunity. At the office, Clara greeted him with her usual kindness. "Ready for another day?" she asked, handing him a clipboard with a list of tasks. Ethan nodded, taking in the tasks she'd outlined: organizing supply donations, assisting volunteers, and helping prepare for an upcoming fundraising gala. As Ethan immersed himself in his work, he noticed something remarkable. He had a knack for solving logistical problems. Whether it was streamlining donation storage or coordinating volunteer efforts, Ethan's practical mind seemed to shine. Clara noticed too, her admiration growing with each passing day. However, not everyone shared Clara's faith in him. Dylan hovered nearby, scrutinizing Ethan's every move. "He's too good to be true," Dylan muttered to Clara one evening. "People don't just turn their lives around like that." "Dylan, you're too cynical," Clara replied, her patience wearing thin. "Why can't you see the potential in people?" "Because I've seen too many people like him take advantage of second chances," Dylan shot back. "I just don't want you to get hurt." Despite Dylan's distrust, Ethan continued to work diligently. The gala preparation consumed much of his time, and he found himself brainstorming ways to improve the event's impact. "What if we included a feature about the people the charity has helped?" Ethan suggested one afternoon. Stories of how their lives have changed. It could inspire the guests to give more. Clara's eyes lit up. "That's an incredible idea," she said. "Let's make it happen." As the gala drew closer, Ethan couldn't ignore the growing unease in the pit of his stomach. Dylan's constant suspicion reminded him of the secrets he carried, secrets he hoped would never come to light. But secrets have a way of surfacing when you least expect it. One evening, as Ethan worked late organizing the event schedule, Dylan approached him with a guarded expression. "What's your angle here?" he asked bluntly. Ethan looked up, startled. "My angle?" "Yeah," Dylan pressed. "Nobody just shows up out of nowhere and does everything right. What's your endgame?" Ethan clenched his jaw, debating whether to respond. "My endgame," he said slowly, "is to rebuild my life. That's it." Dylan didn't look convinced. "You might have Clara fooled, but not me. I'll find out the truth." The next day, Dylan began digging into Ethan's past. His investigation led him to an old newspaper article about a failed architectural firm and its disgraced co-founder, Ethan. According to the article, Ethan had been accused of embezzling company funds, a charge he vehemently denied at the time but couldn't prove his innocence against. Armed with this information, Dylan confronted Clara. "Did you know he's a fraud?" Dylan asked, slamming the article onto her desk. He was accused of stealing from his own company. Clara frowned as she read the article, her heart sinking. She wanted to believe in Ethan, but this revelation shook her faith. Later that evening, she called Ethan into her office. "Ethan," she began, her voice heavy, I need to ask you about this." She slid the article across the desk toward him. Ethan froze as he saw the headline. His heart raced as he looked at Clara's conflicted expression. "It's not what it looks like," he said quietly. "I didn't do what they accused me of." "Then, tell me the truth," Clara urged. "I need to know who I'm trusting." Ethan took a deep breath, the weight of his past crashing down on him. "It's a long story," he began, "but I'll tell you everything." Ethan sat across from Clara in her office, the weight of his past bearing down as he began to tell his story. He spoke of his life before he became homeless, a promising architect with a sharp mind for design and innovation. He had co-founded a small firm with his best friend and business partner, Victor, only for Victor to betray him by falsifying financial records and implicating Ethan in the embezzlement scheme. The firm dissolved, Ethan's reputation was ruined, and he was left with nothing. "I try to clear my name," Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. "But Victor had already taken everything, and I didn't have the money to fight back. I've been trying to survive ever since." Clara listened intently, her expression softening with empathy. She leaned forward, resting her hands on the desk. "Ethan, I don't know if I can fully understand the pain you've been through," she said gently, "but I do believe you. Everyone deserves a chance to start over." Her words were a balm to Ethan's wounded pride, but doubt still lingered. "Not everyone agrees with you," he muttered, glancing toward the hallway where Dylan had been pacing earlier. Clara smiled faintly. "Let me handle Dylan. For now, I want you to focus on helping with the gala. I've been thinking about your idea to include personal stories of the people our charity has helped. It could really make an impact." Ethan nodded, grateful for her trust. As he immersed himself in preparing for the event, he found purpose in his work. He interviewed beneficiaries of the charity, compiled their stories, and helped create displays that highlighted the transformative impact of Clara's organization. A few days later, Clara approached Ethan with an unexpected proposal. "You've been instrumental in pulling this event together," she said. "I think you should attend the gala, not as a worker, but as my guest." Ethan froze. The idea of standing among Clara's wealthy and polished social circle was daunting. "I don't think that's a good idea," he said cautiously. "I don't belong there." "You belong more than you realize," Clara replied firmly. "Your work speaks for itself. And besides," she added with a teasing smile, "I'd like to see everyone's faces when they meet the man behind these brilliant ideas." Despite his reservations, Ethan reluctantly agreed. Clara arranged for him to have a suit tailored, and when he saw himself in the mirror on the night of the gala, he hardly recognized the man staring back at him. The grand ballroom was a spectacle of opulence. Chandeliers bathed the room in golden light, and waiters wove through the crowd with trays of champagne. Ethan stood near the entrance, his shoulders tense as he scanned the sea of unfamiliar faces. Clara appeared at his side, radiant in an elegant gown, and gave him an encouraging smile. "You'll be fine," she said softly. "Just be yourself." Ethan nodded, though his confidence wavered as they entered the room. He felt the weight of every gaze that lingered on him, every whispered comment from Clara's acquaintances. But when the event officially began, the attention shifted to the charity's accomplishments, highlighted through Ethan's displays. As Clara introduced him to a group of donors, Ethan began to relax. He spoke about the housing project he had been working on, his passion shining through despite his nerves. Clara watched proudly as the donors responded with interest, pledging generous contributions to the cause. But just as the evening seemed to be going smoothly, Dylan made his move. Spotting Ethan speaking with a prominent guest, he approached with a sly grin. "So Ethan," Dylan said loudly, drawing attention from nearby groups, "tell everyone how a homeless man like you ended up here tonight. Quite the rags to riches story, isn't it?" The room fell silent. Ethan's face flushed as he struggled to find the words to respond. Clara stepped forward, her voice sharp. "Dylan, that's enough." But Dylan pressed on, pulling out a printed copy of the article he had found. Did Clara mention that Ethan here was accused of embezzlement? Or that he's been living on the streets for years? "I'm sure our donors would love to hear more about that." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Ethan clenched his fists, every instinct urging him to walk out. but Clara placed a steady hand on his arm. "Ethan's story is one of resilience and redemption," she said firmly, addressing the room. "Yes, he's faced challenges, but he's also worked tirelessly to make a difference here. That's the kind of person we should support, not tear down." Despite her defense, the damage was done. Ethan excused himself and slipped out of the ballroom, the humiliation too much to bear. Outside, the cold air stung his skin as he leaned against the side of the building, his mind racing. Minutes later, Clara found him. "Ethan," she said softly, her voice tinged with regret. "I'm so sorry about what happened in there." "It's not your fault," he replied, his voice hollow. "This is what happens when someone like me tries to fit into a world like yours." Clara stepped closer. "You don't have to prove anything to them. You've already shown me who you are, and that's what matters." Ethan met her gaze, the sincerity in her eyes giving him a glimmer of hope. "I don't want to let you down," he admitted. "You haven't," Clara said firmly. "And you won't." As they stood together in the quiet of the night, Ethan resolved not to let the evening's events break him. He had come too far to give up now. Ethan spent the days following the gala buried in his work. The sting of Dylan's public humiliation lingered, but Clara's unwavering support pushed him to keep going. He was determined to prove himself, not just to Clara and the charity, but to himself. He wasn't the man his past painted him to be, and he was ready to show the world what he could do. Clara approached him one afternoon, her expression a mix of excitement and determination. "Ethan, we've secured funding for the housing project thanks to the gala. I want you to take the lead on designing it." Ethan froze, her words catching him off guard. "Me?" he asked, unsure if he had heard correctly. "Yes," Clara said with a smile. "Your ideas were the driving force behind this project. I can't think of anyone better suited to lead it." The magnitude of her trust was overwhelming. It had been years since Ethan had worked on anything close to architecture, but the passion he once had for it flickered to life. "I won't let you down," he promised, his voice steady with resolve. Over the next few weeks, Ethan poured himself into the project. His designs focused on sustainability and practicality, ensuring the housing units were not only affordable, but also environmentally friendly. Clara was impressed by his innovative approach, often stopping by his workspace to offer encouragement. But not everyone was as supportive. Dylan, still unconvinced of Ethan's sincerity, scrutinized every step of the project. "You're putting a lot of faith in someone with a questionable track record," he told Clara one evening. "What if this backfires?" "It won't," Clara replied firmly. "Ethan has more than proven himself." Dylan's skepticism only fueled Ethan's determination. Despite the tension, he completed the initial designs ahead of schedule, presenting them to Clara and the charity's board. The room fell silent as he explained his vision, every detail meticulously thought out. When he finished, Clara stood and began to clap, her expression beaming with pride. The rest of the board followed suit, and for the first time in years, Ethan felt a sense of accomplishment. As the housing project gained momentum, Ethan's confidence grew. But just as he began to feel like he was finally moving forward, his past returned to haunt him. One morning, as Ethan was reviewing construction plans, Dylan barged into his office, a grim expression on his face. "We need to talk," he said, tossing a folder onto the desk. Ethan opened it, his stomach sinking as he recognized the documents inside. They were records from his old firm, proof of the financial discrepancies that had led to his downfall. But there was something new. A report from a private investigator Dylan had hired, revealing discrepancies in the original accusations against Ethan. "Turns out your former partner wasn't just embezzling," Dylan said, his tone sharp. "He was setting you up to take the fall." Ethan stared at the documents, anger and frustration bubbling inside him. "Why are you showing me this?" he asked, his voice tight. "Because as much as I don't trust you, I don't trust this guy more," Dylan admitted reluctantly. "If you want to clear your name, now's your chance." The revelation was both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, it vindicated Ethan, proving he wasn't the thief everyone believed him to be. On the other, it reopened wounds he had spent years trying to heal. Clara was the first person he turned to after reading the report. "I don't know what to do," he admitted, handing her the folder. "Part of me wants to confront him, but I don't want to drag you or the charity into this." Clara placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You have every right to fight for your name," she said softly. "And if this is the path you choose, I'll stand by you." Encouraged by her support, Ethan began gathering evidence to confront his former partner, Victor. Dylan, despite his lingering doubts, offered to help, admitting that he might have misjudged Ethan. The confrontation was inevitable, but it wouldn't be easy. Ethan knew he would have to face not only Victor, but also the lingering shadows of his past. As he prepared for the showdown, he felt a mix of fear and determination. This wasn't just about clearing his name. It was about reclaiming the life he had lost. Ethan spent the following days meticulously preparing for the confrontation with Victor. The private investigator's report Dylan had provided was thorough, but he knew it wouldn't be enough. He needed irrefutable evidence to hold Victor accountable and to clear his own name. Dylan surprised him by offering to leverage his connections to gather additional records. "I still don't trust you entirely," Dylan admitted one evening as they pored over documents in Clara's office. "But if you're telling the truth, Victor deserves to go down." "Thanks," Ethan replied, his voice measured. "I appreciate your help, even if it's begrudging." Clara joined them, her presence a calming force amidst the tension. "This isn't just about proving your innocence, Ethan," she said. "It's about showing people that you've risen above what happened." Ethan nodded, her words resonating deeply. For the first time in years, he felt like he wasn't facing his battles alone. The day of the confrontation arrived. Ethan and Dylan waited outside Victor's sleek, glass-fronted office building, a stark reminder of the life Ethan had once envisioned for himself. Clara had wanted to come, but Ethan insisted on handling it himself. Victor greeted them with the polished charm Ethan remembered so well. "Ethan," he said, feigning warmth. "What an unexpected surprise." "Cut the act, Victor," Ethan said, his tone sharp. "We both know why I'm here." Victor's smile faltered as Dylan stepped forward, placing a folder of evidence on the desk. "We've uncovered everything," Dylan said. "The embezzlement, the falsified records, the way you pinned it all on Ethan." Victor's expression darkened. "I don't know what you're talking about," he said smoothly, but there was a flicker of panic in his eyes. Ethan leaned forward, his voice steady but firm. "You ruined my life, Victor. But this time, I have the proof. You're not getting away with it." Victor's bravado crumbled as they laid out the evidence. He tried to deny it, then attempted to shift the blame, but it was clear he was cornered. "What do you want?" he finally asked, his tone bitter. "I want my name cleared," Ethan said. "And I want you to publicly admit what you did." Victor sneered. "Do you really think anyone will believe you?" "They will when I take this to the media," Ethan shot back. "Or I could go straight to the investors you've been duping." Victor's face paled. "Fine," he spat. "I'll make a statement. But don't think this is over." Ethan's hands trembled as he left the office, but there was a weight lifted from his shoulders. For the first time in years, he felt a sense of justice. Back at the charity, Clara waited anxiously for news. When Ethan and Dylan returned, the tension in the room eased as Ethan recounted the confrontation. "He's agreed to clear my name," Ethan said, though his tone was cautious. "But it's not over. People like Victor always find a way to fight back." Clara nodded, her expression both relieved and thoughtful. "You've taken the first step," she said. "That's what matters." Dylan surprised everyone by speaking up. "I misjudged you, Ethan," he said, extending a hand. "I still have my doubts, but you've earned a chance to prove me wrong." Ethan accepted the handshake, a flicker of respect passing between them. It wasn't a full resolution, but it was a start. In the days that followed, Victor released a public statement admitting to the embezzlement and exonerating Ethan. The news spread quickly, and Ethan's reputation began to recover. Clara organized a press event to announce the charity's housing project, positioning Ethan as the lead designer. But not everyone was ready to forgive and forget. At the event, a reporter asked Ethan pointedly, "How do you respond to those who say you don't deserve the second chance?" Ethan hesitated, the weight of the question sinking in. Before he could respond, Clara stepped forward. Ethan's story is proof that people can rise above their circumstances, she said firmly. He's not just rebuilding his life, he's helping others do the same. Her words silenced a room, and Ethan felt a surge of gratitude. Later, as they packed up the event, he turned to Clara. "Why do you believe in me so much?" he asked quietly. Clara smiled. "Because I see the person you're trying to be," she said. "And that's worth believing in." Their bond deepened as they spent more time together, working on the housing project and navigating the challenges of public scrutiny. But even as things seemed to settle, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling that Victor wasn't done with him. With Victor's public confession clearing Ethan's name, the housing project moved forward smoothly. Ethan's reputation began to recover as news outlets covered the story of his vindication and his new role at Clara's charity. But despite the growing sense of accomplishment, Ethan couldn't shake the feeling of unease. Victor's parting words echoed in his mind. "Don't think this is over." One evening, while Ethan was finalizing construction plans in Clara's office, Dylan walked in holding his phone, his expression grim. "You need to see this," he said, setting the device on the desk. A newly published article filled the screen, its headline accusing Ethan of manipulating Clara to further his own career. Ethan's face paled as he read the allegations. The article claimed he had exploited Clara's charity for personal gain, suggesting that his relationship with Clara was part of a calculated scheme to repair his tarnished image. Though the claims were baseless, the story gained traction quickly, with Victor rumored to be behind the smear campaign. Clara entered the room moments later, her brow furrowed. "I just saw the article," she said. "We need to get ahead of this before it does any real damage." "I knew he wouldn't let this go," Ethan muttered, his frustration boiling over. "Victor's trying to destroy me all over again." "Then we fight back," Clara said firmly. She placed a hand on his shoulder, grounding him. "We'll hold a press conference tomorrow. The truth is on our side, Ethan." The following day, Clara and Ethan stood side by side at a press conference held at the charity's headquarters. The room was packed with reporters, their cameras flashing as Clara began to speak. "Ethan's story is one of resilience and redemption," Clara said, her voice steady and confident. "He has not only cleared his name, but has also proven himself through his work and dedication to helping others." Ethan took a deep breath and stepped forward. "I've made mistakes in my life," he admitted, his voice steady despite the tension in the room. "But everything I've done since coming here has been to rebuild, not just for myself, but for others who deserve a second chance. The lies being spread about me are just that, lies." Reporters bombarded them with questions, but Clara's calm demeanor and Ethan's honesty carried the day. As the conference ended, Clara leaned toward Ethan and said quietly, "This won't stop Victor completely, but we've shown him we won't back down." In the following days, the smear campaign lost momentum, thanks in part to the outpouring of support from those who had worked alongside Ethan at the charity. Testimonials from volunteers and beneficiaries painted a picture of a man determined to make a difference, silencing many of Victor's critics. Despite this victory, Ethan couldn't ignore the toll the situation was taking on Clara. Late one night, as they worked together on the final stages of the housing project, Ethan noticed the exhaustion etched into her features. "You're carrying too much," he said gently. "This isn't just my fight, it's mine to handle." Clara shook her head, her eyes meeting his. "You're not alone in this, Ethan. I won't let you fight it alone." Their connection deepened as they worked through the challenges together. For the first time, Ethan allowed himself to imagine a future, one where he wasn't defined by his past, but by the life he was building with Clara by his side. But just as things seemed to settle, another unexpected twist emerged. Clara received an anonymous message warning her that Victor had been leveraging his own connections to sabotage the housing project. It wasn't just Ethan Victor wanted to destroy, it was everything they had built together. The anonymous message Clara received left her shaken. Its warning was clear. Victor wasn't just targeting Ethan's reputation. He was actively working to undermine the charity's housing project. Clara shared the message with Ethan and Dylan, and together they began investigating the claims. It didn't take long to find evidence. Subcontractors hired for the project suddenly withdrew without explanation. Delays in material shipments were suspiciously frequent, and budget discrepancies began to surface. Dylan used his connections to dig deeper, uncovering that Victor had paid off several vendors to abandon their contracts with the charity. "This is his way of getting revenge," Dylan said grimly, spreading out the documents he'd gathered. "He wants to make sure this project fails and, by extension, destroy all the goodwill Ethan's built." Ethan felt the anger bubbling inside him, but Clara's calm voice grounded him. "We can't let him win," she said firmly. "We'll find new contractors, new suppliers. This project isn't stopping." Ethan nodded, his determination renewed. "If he thinks he can break us, he's wrong. I've lost too much already. I'm not losing this." Clara and Ethan began working tirelessly to salvage the project. Clara reached out to her network of donors and suppliers, leveraging every connection she had to replace the lost contractors. Ethan took on a more hands-on role, coordinating with the construction crew and ensuring that every delay was met with a swift solution. Despite their efforts, the strain was evident. Clara's team was stretched thin, and the constant obstacles left Ethan questioning whether they could truly succeed. But Clara's unwavering belief in the project, and in Ethan, kept them moving forward. One night, as they reviewed the revised project timeline, Ethan turned to Clara. "Why do you keep doing this? Fighting for me, for this project, even when everything seems stacked against us?" Clara smiled softly. "Because it's worth it. You're worth it. And because I believe in second chances." Ethan's chest tightened at her words. For the first time in years, he felt like someone truly saw him, not as a failure or a fraud, but as someone capable of doing good. As they worked to rebuild the project's momentum, a breakthrough came in the form of an unexpected ally. One of the original subcontractors, who had backed out under pressure from Victor, reached out to Ethan with an apology. "I couldn't take his money," the contractor admitted during a late-night call. "What he's doing is wrong, and I want to help make it right." The contractor's return was a turning point for the project. With his help, they were able to secure additional suppliers and bring back workers who had left under Victor's influence. Slowly but surely, the housing project began to get back on track. But the fight wasn't over. Victor, learning of their progress, escalated his efforts. He began planting rumors among donors, suggesting that the project was doomed to fail. Clara faced pressure from several board members to shut it down, but she stood firm. "This project is more than just buildings," Clara told the board during a heated meeting. "It's about restoring hope, and we won't let one man's vendetta take that away." Ethan, meanwhile, faced his own challenges. He found himself constantly pushing back against the lingering doubts in his mind. Every delay, every setback felt like a test of his resolve. But through it all, Clara remained his anchor, her quiet strength keeping him grounded. The project's progress culminated in a milestone event, the completion of the first housing unit. Clara organized a small ceremony to celebrate, inviting donors, community members, and volunteers to see the tangible results of their efforts. As Ethan stood before the crowd, he spoke from the heart. "This isn't just a building," he said, his voice steady. "It's a symbol of what's possible when people believe in each other. I wouldn't be standing here today if it weren't for someone who saw potential in me when I couldn't see it myself." The applause that followed was thunderous, but the moment wasn't just about validation. It was about hope. That night, as Clara and Ethan stood outside the completed unit, she turned to him with a smile. "We did it," she said. "No," Ethan replied, his voice soft. "You did it. You gave me a second chance. And I'll never forget that." Their connection, unspoken yet undeniable, deepened further. But they both knew the battle wasn't over. Victor's influence loomed large, and they would need to be ready for whatever came next. The celebration of the first completed housing unit was short-lived. Days after the ceremony, Clara received a legal notice. Victor was suing the charity for defamation, claiming the public statements about his sabotage had damaged his business. The lawsuit was a strategic move, designed to drain the charity's resources and tarnish its reputation. Ethan felt the weight of guilt as Clara shared the news with him and Dylan. "This is my fault," Ethan muttered. If it weren't for me, Victor wouldn't be doing this. Don't do that, Clara said firmly. Victor is the one at fault, not you. We'll fight this, just like we've fought everything else. Dylan, who had grown increasingly protective of Clara and the charity, took charge of coordinating their legal defense. This is just another one of his games, he said. We'll prove he doesn't have a leg to stand on. The lawsuit placed the charity under intense scrutiny, with media outlets covering the story and questioning whether Clara's organization could survive the blow. Donors began to waver, some pulling their funding out of fear of bad publicity. Despite the mounting pressure, Clara refused to back down. She rallied her team, reassuring them that they would weather the storm. This charity has faced challenges before, she told them in a staff meeting. And we've come out stronger every time. This will be no different. Ethan, however, couldn't shake his sense of responsibility. Late one night, as he and Clara worked in her office, he voiced his fears. If you want me to leave, I will, he said quietly. If it'll save the charity, I'll walk away. Clara looked up sharply, her expression one of both disbelief and determination. Ethan, I didn't fight for you, so you could give up now. You're not walking away. We're in this together. Her words reignited his resolve, and Ethan threw himself into his work with renewed energy. Meanwhile, Dylan uncovered evidence that Victor's lawsuit was baseless, built on fabricated claims designed to intimidate them. The evidence gave their legal team the upper hand, but Victor wasn't done. He began leaking false stories to the media, accusing Clara and Ethan of misusing donor funds. The allegations were damaging, but Clara stood firm, knowing the truth would eventually prevail. As the legal battle dragged on, tensions reached a breaking point. The charity staff began to show signs of strain, and even Clara, usually the picture of calm resilience, seemed worn down. Ethan noticed the toll it was taking on her, and one evening, as they sat in her office, he finally confronted her. You're doing too much, he said gently. You've been holding everyone together, but who's holding you together? Clara smiled weakly. I'm fine, Ethan. Really. You don't have to be fine all the time, he said. Let me help you. For once, Clara hesitated, but the sincerity in Ethan's eyes broke through her defenses. She admitted that the constant stress and public scrutiny were weighing heavily on her, and for the first time, she allowed herself to lean on him. Their relationship, already deepened by their shared struggles, grew even stronger. But the growing closeness also made them more vulnerable. Victor, sensing an opportunity, began spreading rumors about an improper relationship between Clara and Ethan, hoping to further damage their credibility. The rumors reached the charity's board, leading to a tense meeting where some members questioned Clara's judgment. This lawsuit is already draining our resources, one board member said, and now the media is questioning our integrity. We need to consider the possibility that Ethan's presence is doing more harm than good. Clara defended Ethan fiercely, refusing to let Victor's lies dictate their actions. Ethan has been instrumental in everything we've accomplished, she said firmly. I will not turn my back on him. Her unwavering loyalty inspired the staff, but it also fueled Victor's determination to bring them down. As the trial date approached, the stakes grew higher, and Ethan knew that their fight was far from over. The day of the trial arrived, bringing a wave of tension that swept through the charity and everyone involved. Clara, Ethan, and Dylan sat side by side in the courtroom as Victor's lawyers laid out their case, painting a picture of supposed defamation and professional sabotage. The narrative was carefully crafted to make Clara's charity, and by extension, Ethan, appear reckless and unethical. Ethan felt the weight of every accusation as the opposing counsel paraded witnesses, including contractors Victor had paid off, to testify against them. Each lie stung, but Ethan kept his composure, determined to see the truth prevail. Dylan and the charity's legal team struck back with hard evidence of Victor's malicious intent. They presented documents proving that Victor had bribed subcontractors to abandon the housing project and falsified claims to launch his smear campaign. The evidence was compelling, but the damage to Clara's and Ethan's reputations lingered in the courtroom like a shadow. Clara was called to the stand, and the opposing counsel wasted no time questioning her relationship with Ethan, insinuating that her trust in him had clouded her judgment. Clara's response was calm but firm. "I trust Ethan because he's earned that trust," she said. "His dedication and integrity have been instrumental in everything this charity has accomplished." Ethan was the next to testify, and he spoke with raw honesty about his past, his mistakes, and his journey toward redemption. "I've made bad decisions in my life," he admitted, "but Clara saw something in me that I couldn't see in myself. This charity isn't about me. It's about helping others find the second chances they deserve." His words resonated in the courtroom, silencing the murmurs of doubt. As the trial continued, the tide began to turn in their favor, but Victor wasn't ready to back down. In a last-ditch effort to sway the court, Victor took the stand. His polished demeanor cracked as Dylan and the charity's lawyers presented emails and financial records that directly implicated him in the smear campaign and sabotage attempts. The evidence was undeniable, and for the first time, Victor's confidence wavered. Dylan, who had spent weeks gathering the final pieces of evidence, leaned back in satisfaction as the jury watched Victor squirm under questioning. "This isn't just about me," Victor snapped defensively. "It's about exposing the fraud this charity represents." But the courtroom wasn't buying it. The tide had fully shifted, and Victor's credibility crumbled under the weight of his own lies. His attempts to vilify Ethan and Clara only highlighted his own corruption, and the judge's stern warnings silenced his outbursts. As the trial concluded, the verdict was clear. Victor's case was dismissed, and the court ordered him to pay restitution to the charity for damages caused by his actions. The weight of the victory was overwhelming, and Clara's team erupted into quiet cheers as the judge announced the decision. Outside the courthouse, Clara and Ethan stood together, the tension of the past weeks finally lifting. "It's over," Clara said, her voice tinged with relief. "For now," Ethan replied, his expression thoughtful. "But rebuilding takes time." "Good thing we're good at that," Clara said, with a smile. With Victor defeated, the focus shifted back to the housing project. The court's ruling vindicated Clara's charity, restoring donor confidence and bringing renewed support for their efforts. Ethan threw himself into the work, determined to finish what they had started. The first phase of the housing project was completed within weeks, and Clara organized an opening ceremony to celebrate the milestone. The event was attended by community members, donors, and volunteers, all of whom had played a part in overcoming the obstacles Victor had thrown their way. Ethan spoke at the ceremony, his voice steady and filled with gratitude. "This project isn't just about providing housing, it's about providing hope," he said. "And none of it would have been possible without Clara's belief in me and in this vision." As the crowd applauded, Clara smiled at Ethan, pride evident in her expression. Their connection had grown stronger with every challenge, and now, standing together on the cusp of success, they felt an unspoken bond that neither could deny. Months later, the housing project was fully completed, transforming the once empty lot into a thriving community. Families moved into their new homes, their smiles a testament to the hard work and determination that had brought the project to life. Ethan, now a respected member of Clara's team, found himself not just rebuilding his career, but also rediscovering his sense of purpose. Clara's unwavering support had given him the strength to overcome his past, and in turn, he had found a way to repay her faith in him. As they walked through the finished neighborhood one evening, Clara turned to Ethan with a smile. "You've come a long way," she said. "So have you," Ethan replied. "None of this would have happened without you." Clara laughed softly. "It's not about me. It's about what we've built together." Their journey had been fraught with challenges, but they had emerged stronger, their bond unshaken. As the sun set over the new community, Ethan realized that his second chance wasn't just about redemption. It was about building a future worth fighting for. Thank you so much for watching this story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. It really helps us keep creating more content for you. We'd love to hear your thoughts. What part of the story impacted you the most? Was it Ethan's journey of redemption, Clara's unwavering belief in him, or the triumph over adversity? Let us know in the comments below. Also, We're always looking for new and exciting stories to bring to life on this channel. If you have any ideas or themes you'd love to see, drop your suggestions and comments. Your input means the world to us, and we can't wait to hear from you. Thanks for being part of our community, and we'll see you in the next story.